Pythagoras is a name that resonates with anyone who has ever opened a math book. Most people know him as the ancient Greek mathematician famous for the Pythagorean theorem. However, Pythagoras was more than just a mathematician. He was a philosopher, a mystic, and even a cult leader. Not a cult in the sinister sense like that of Charles Manson, but a group of devoted followers who believed that mathematics was not just a tool, but a sacred key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. The Brotherhood of Pythagoras, as it came to be known, was built on principles of harmony, reincarnation, and a deep reverence for numbers. The life of Pythagoras, like many figures from antiquity, is shrouded in myth and legend. Born around 570 BC, Pythagoras was the son of Nisarchus, a gem engraver, and Pythes, a woman of noble birth. According to ancient sources, Pythagoras was destined for greatness even before his birth. The Syrian Neoplatonic philosopher Lamblichus tells a story of how his parents visited the oracle at Delphi during Pythes' pregnancy. The oracle prophesied that their son would grow into a wise man whose teachings would benefit all of humanity. As a young man, Pythagoras studied under some of the most renowned pre-Socratic philosophers of the time, including Pherecydes of Syros, Anaximander, and Thales of Miletus. Some accounts even suggest he was taught by the legendary Orpheus himself, though this is likely more myth than fact. Pythagoras is also said to have traveled extensively, seeking knowledge from distant lands. While there is some debate about where exactly he went, it is widely believed that he spent time in Egypt studying with the priests of Thebes. It was here that he likely learned the fundamentals of geometry, mathematics, and metempsychosis, the belief in reincarnation. After years of study and travel, Pythagoras returned to his homeland of Samos. There, he established his own school, known as the Semicircle of Pythagoras. Though ostensibly a school of mathematics, it was in this setting that the core philosophical principles of Pythagoreanism began to take shape. Pythagoras engaged in deep debates with some of the greatest minds of his time, and his ideas on the nature of reality, numbers, and the soul began to crystallize. As Pythagoras grew older, he began to tire of teaching and sought a new challenge. Around the age of 40, he left Samos, which had fallen under the rule of the tyrant Polycrates, and moved to the city of Croton in southern Italy. There, he established a commune that quickly attracted over 1,000 followers. For about 2 decades, this Pythagorean community lived peacefully, guided by their belief in harmony, reincarnation, and the sacred nature of numbers. However, the peace was not to last. In 510 BC, Croton, with the help of the wise Pythagoreans, defeated the neighboring city of Sybaris in battle. This victory sparked a desire among the citizens of Croton to establish a democratic constitution, an idea that Pythagoras strongly opposed. He believed that the masses were too uninformed to govern themselves, and that democracy would inevitably lead to mob rule. His opposition did not sit well with the pro-democratic factions in the city, and soon they plotted to remove him. The plot culminated in an attempt on Pythagoras' life. The pro-democrats set fire to the home of Milo, a prominent Pythagorean and Olympic athlete, while Pythagoras and some of his followers were inside. What happened next is unclear and varies depending on the source. Some accounts claim that Pythagoras managed to escape the fire, but lost many of his followers in the process. Following this, he supposedly fled to Metapontum, where he and his remaining followers succumbed to dehydration and starvation after 40 days. Another version of the story suggests that Pythagoras, overwhelmed with grief and guilt, committed suicide after escaping the fire, thus making the sacrifices of his followers in vain. Perhaps the most peculiar version of Pythagoras' demise comes from the biographer Diogenes Laertius, who claimed that Pythagoras was unable to escape because his path was blocked by a field of fava beans. Pythagoras, who believed beans to be sacred, refused to trample them, and as a result, was caught and executed by his pursuers. This version of the story is often viewed as an attempt by Pythagoras' detractors to ridicule him and his teachings. Despite his untimely and somewhat mysterious death, Pythagoras' influence did not die with him. In fact, his followers only became more devoted, turning him into a martyr and a prophet. They spread the word of his teachings and attributed numerous discoveries and ideas to him, some of which he may never have actually made. In their eyes, Pythagoras was not just a wise man, but a divine being with supernatural powers. It was said that he could see the future, converse with rivers, and even had a golden thigh. Some followers believed that he had journeyed to the underworld and returned unscathed. Central to Pythagoreanism was the belief in reincarnation. Pythagoras' followers claimed that he could remember all of his past lives, which included being Ithalides, the son of Hermes, Euphorbus, who fought in the Trojan War, Hermodamus, and even Pyrrhus, a humble fisherman. These stories elevated Pythagoras to a near-divine status, suggesting that he possessed the wisdom of the ancients and was more than just an ordinary man. But Pythagoreanism was not just about the worship of Pythagoras himself. At its core, the philosophy revered numbers. Pythagoras taught that the universe was fundamentally composed of numbers, and that through mathematics, one could uncover the secrets of the cosmos. This idea, while intriguing, had its quirks. For instance, Pythagoras only recognized natural numbers, positive integers, and had no concept of zero, as it had not yet been introduced from India. In the Pythagorean worldview, negative numbers were considered blasphemous. The Pythagoreans assigned specific meanings to different numbers. One represented unity and divine intellect, while two symbolized thought and earthly matter. The number 3 was particularly significant, associated with the god Apollo and representing the sum of reality, the beginning, middle, and end. The number 10 was considered the most perfect of all, and the Pythagoreans held it in the highest regard. They met in groups of 10 and worshipped the tetrad, a triangular figure whose rows added up to 10. Harmony was another crucial aspect of Pythagoreanism, and it was also represented by numbers. Pythagoras taught that harmony was achieved through the balance of opposites, symbolized by even and odd numbers. Every duality in the universe, whether male and female, light and dark, or up and down, was represented by these numbers. Interestingly, the number 1 was considered both even and odd, embodying the unity of opposites. Pythagoras' fascination with numbers extended to music as well. He and his followers discovered that musical intervals could be translated into mathematical ratios and octaves. This revelation led to the creation of Pythagorean tuning, a system for measuring music in intervals, ratios, and octaves. The Pythagoreans were captivated by the idea that something as abstract as mathematics could evoke such strong psychological and aesthetic responses in humans. Pythagorean beliefs about the cosmos were also ahead of their time. The Pythagorean philosopher Philolaus, for example, proposed that the planets moved around a central flame, a precursor to the heliocentric model of the solar system later championed by Copernicus. However, there is no evidence that the Pythagoreans believed the Earth was round or that it rotated on its axis. Reincarnation, according to Pythagoreanism, was a cycle that one could escape through spiritual purification. Unlike other belief systems, Pythagorean reincarnation was not tied to moral behavior. A person could lead a virtuous life and still be reincarnated as a worm, while a wicked person might return as a king. The ultimate goal was to escape the cycle of reincarnation altogether, which could be achieved by adhering to the Pythagorean way of life and its strict rules and rituals. Those who succeeded would join the gods and Pythagoras in the afterlife. The Pythagoreans also practiced a form of asceticism that included abstaining from meat, fish, and beans. Pythagoras believed that any being capable of suffering should not be harmed unnecessarily, and since eating meat involved animal suffering, it was forbidden. The Pythagoreans were also ahead of their time in their views on animal welfare, arguing that killing animals for reasons other than self-defense diminished one's morality. They saw humans as fundamentally similar to animals, differing only in intelligence. The Pythagoreans' dietary restrictions extended to their daily routines. They believed in maintaining a healthy body and mind, and their diet was a crucial part of this pursuit. Their meals were simple but nourishing, and they avoided foods that they believed could harm their spiritual purity. Fava beans, in particular, were off the menu, either because Pythagoras believed they contained the souls of the dead, or because of the wind they produced, which he thought stole the breath of life. Living as a Pythagorean meant adhering to a strict set of rules, many of which were peculiar by today's standards. For instance, they were forbidden from picking up anything that had fallen, stirring a fire with an iron tool, or even urinating while facing the sun. They were also required to observe long periods of silence, a practice meant to promote self-control and inner reflection. Pythagoras himself supposedly spent years in silence as a way to achieve spiritual discipline. The communal lifestyle of the Pythagoreans was equally disciplined. They lived together, shared their possessions, and followed a rigorous daily routine. Their day began with exercise, followed by lectures on philosophy and mathematics. Afternoons were dedicated to quiet reflection and meditation, while evenings were reserved for discussions on ethical and spiritual matters. The Pythagoreans believed that living in harmony with one another was a reflection of the harmony of the universe. This community life, however, also had its downsides. Membership in the Pythagorean Brotherhood was exclusive, and those who failed to adhere to the strict rules were expelled, a fate considered worse than death. Despite their strict practices, the Pythagoreans made significant contributions to various fields, particularly mathematics and music. The Pythagorean theorem, which states that in a right-angled triangle, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides, remains one of the most important principles in mathematics. However, it's important to note that Pythagoras might not have been the original discoverer of this theorem. Evidence suggests that the Babylonians knew of this relationship between the sides of a triangle centuries before Pythagoras. Nevertheless, Pythagoras and his followers were the first to prove it rigorously, and the theorem has since carried his name. In music, Pythagoras' contributions were equally groundbreaking. His discovery of the mathematical relationships between musical intervals laid the foundation for the study of acoustics. The concept that music could be understood and predicted through numbers was revolutionary, influencing not only the development of music theory, but also the way people perceive the relationship between science and art. The influence of Pythagoreanism extended far beyond mathematics and music. The Pythagoreans were also interested in cosmology and the nature of the universe. They believed that the cosmos was governed by mathematical laws, and that understanding these laws could lead to a deeper understanding of the divine. This idea that the universe is ordered and can be understood through reason and mathematics laid the groundwork for later scientific inquiry. It also influenced the development of Western philosophy, particularly through figures like Plato, who was heavily influenced by Pythagorean thought. Plato adopted many Pythagorean ideas, including the belief in the immortality of the soul and the notion that reality is fundamentally mathematical. In his dialogue Timaeus, Plato describes the universe as a living being with a soul, created according to mathematical principles. This Pythagorean view of the cosmos as an ordered, harmonious system would go on to influence not only philosophy, but also the development of Western science, particularly during the Renaissance. Pythagoreanism also left its mark on later religious and mystical traditions. The idea of the transmigration of souls, or metempsychosis, became a central tenet of various philosophical and religious systems, including Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. The Pythagorean emphasis on purification, asceticism, and the pursuit of spiritual knowledge also influenced early Christian monasticism and mysticism. Some scholars even suggest that elements of Pythagorean thought can be found in the teachings of Jesus and the early Christian church, particularly in the emphasis on love, harmony, and the rejection of material wealth. However, the Pythagoreans were not without their controversies. Their secretive nature and exclusive membership led to suspicion and hostility from those outside the community. The Pythagoreans' influence in Croton, both politically and intellectually, made them powerful but also vulnerable to attacks from those who opposed their ideas. The eventual destruction of the Pythagorean community in Croton marked the decline of Pythagoreanism as a major philosophical movement. Yet, the teachings of Pythagoras continued to be studied and revered by subsequent generations. Today, Pythagoras is often remembered primarily for his contributions to mathematics, particularly the Pythagorean theorem. However, his legacy is far more complex and far-reaching. He was a philosopher who sought to understand the universe through numbers, a mystic who believed in the immortality of the soul, and a teacher who inspired a devoted following. The ideas of Pythagoras and his followers laid the foundations for many aspects of Western thought, from science and mathematics to philosophy and religion. Pythagoras' belief that the universe is ordered and can be understood through reason continues to resonate in the modern world. The Pythagorean idea that there is a connection between mathematics, music, and the cosmos finds echoes in contemporary scientific theories, such as string theory, which posits that the fundamental building blocks of the universe are vibrating strings of energy. The legacy of Pythagoras is a testament to the enduring power of ideas and the ways in which they can shape the course of history. In the end, Pythagoras' life and teachings remind us of the deep connections between the abstract and the tangible, the spiritual and the material. His vision of a universe governed by harmony and order, where the mysteries of the cosmos could be unraveled through the study of numbers, continues to inspire those who seek to understand the world around us. Whether as a mathematician, a philosopher, or a mystic, Pythagoras remains one of the most fascinating and influential figures in the history of Western thought. The Pythagoreans may have lived over 2,000 years ago, but their ideas continue to resonate with us today, challenging us to think differently and to see the world in a new light. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below and check out my other videos for more fascinating insights into history.